My name is Alyssa Dempsie, and welcome to my 2025 TED Talk. I became really interested in ADHD because I had this friend. She was a very bubbly, very bright person, and she brought a lot of light not only into my lives, but into the lives of others. And then she started taking ADHD medication. On this medication, she turned almost into a zombie. She lost a lot of who she was, a lot of what she was interested in, and really her light dimmed a lot. I was really, really curious why this had happened, what the other options were, and what could be done about this. So I started looking into different treatment options for ADHD. However, throughout my treatment process, I changed from ADHD treatment to ADHD presentation. And my research question became, how does ADHD change with gender, and what are the appropriate treatment methods? First, I want you guys to write down or think of 3 words that you think of when you think of a person with ADHD. And I have a few people share out. Who wants to share out?
I'll share. I'm disorganized, talkative, and unfocused.
Anyone else? Would you say that?
Energetic.
Alec?
Active.
Okay. This is very similar to what I would have said before my research and my thesis. While researching ADHD, I came across a concept known as referral bias. Referral bias is the idea that perceived ideas affect who a person is going to refer. So teachers, doctors, psychiatrists, anyone with the ability or in the position to refer a person for the treatment of a condition has preconceived ideas about this condition. These ideas often affect who they're going to refer for this treatment. I also found that comorbidity, subtype, and developmental age are the most important aspects to keep in mind when looking at different treatment options of ADHD. While other things are definitely important, these are what I have found to be the most important. We as doctors, researchers, teachers, and a society put people in boxes based off of their perceived gender. Referral bias is observed in ADHD through the idea that females are more likely to present inattentive, and males are more likely to present hyperactive. Through 2 studies done 3 years apart, Biderman et al. Exemplified the effects of referral bias in ADHD. In the first study, done in 2002, he used a referred population. The second study in 2005 used a non-referred population. This study suggests that clinical correlates of ADHD are not influenced by gender, and that gender differences reported in groups of subjects seen in clinical settings may be caused by referral bias. They found that symptoms do not change with gender, and that these reported differences are likely found due to referral bias. These 2 studies were some of the first strong pieces of evidence accounting referral bias for the reported gender differences in ADHD. Another study found that ADHD was falsely diagnosed by 16.7% of therapists, and all therapists gave boys an ADHD diagnosis at a rate 2 times more than they did girls. The only thing these therapists were provided were vignettes, where the only things changed were names, pronouns, and images if they were provided. In another review by Martin, where she looks at the relationship between being female and ADHD, she comments that due to the perceptions and stereotypes surrounding ADHD as a condition more commonly in males, and general gendered expectations of children and young people's behaviors, adults may perceive the same behaviors and difficulties differently in young people, depending on their perceived gender. Hyperactive symptoms don't go unnoticed in females. When hyperactive symptoms are noticed in girls, it's not as likely to be associated with ADHD. However, if a male is seen presenting hyperactive symptoms, they're much more likely to receive a referral and a diagnosis, as well as treatment. This is important because these gendered expectations may be leading to incorrect diagnoses, can cause a large number of people to either go untreated, receive the wrong treatment, or not even receive a diagnosis. People with ADHD are much more likely to get in car crashes and struggle socially. Going untreated or undertreated causes their symptoms to stay unmanaged and these issues to stay prevalent in their life. But all of this is not to say that there is no difference, just that the difference isn't quite what we think it is. In the same review by Martin, she notes that the hyperactive symptoms leave seat in class, fidgets with hands and feet, and climbs excessively had a higher prevalence in males, where the hyperactive symptoms talks excessively and interrupts were much more common in females. It's important to note that all of the children in this study, males and females, had the same level of hyperactivity and impulsivity. Similarly, a study done in Puerto Rico, done with a representative community-based sample, found that 30% of boys with combined type ADHD versus 4.9% of girls with combined type ADHD received a diagnosis for a mood disorder, as well as 53.8% of girls with inattentive ADHD versus 12.2% of boys with inattentive ADHD received a diagnosis for an anxiety disorder. A person's gender does not affect which subtype of ADHD a person has, but it may affect how they present within their subtype. It's important to consider that this concept not only changes how we think about ADHD, but also the treatment process of ADHD. As mentioned before, I found that comorbidities, subtypes, and developmental ages are some of the most important aspects to keep in mind when considering treatment options. The symptoms a person experiences changes with each developmental stage. A study done by Martel et al. Defined the different symptom presentations for different developmental ages. They found that preschoolers struggled with a similar level of difficulty across all symptoms. Adolescents, even if they had an inattentive ADHD, had more struggles with impulsivity symptoms during their adolescent period. And by adulthood, symptoms became more defined, creating an easier, more observable symptom profile. If symptoms change per developmental stage, treatment's not going to work the same in a teenager versus an adult, even if they have the same symptoms and subtype. Comorbidities are additional diagnoses on top of a main one. These diagnoses are also known as co-occurring. Comorbidities have a high rate of overlap for those with ADHD and those in the neurodivergent community. A review that focused on the relationship between comorbidities and ADHD remarked how comorbid conditions with ADHD have a definite bearing on the selection of treatment modality, as well as the treatment response. Comorbid conditions are going to affect how a person reacts pharmacologically to different medications and psychosocially to different therapy methods. For example, adolescents with high levels of anxiety showed an improved response to behavioral therapy, whereas those with a conduct disorder, which is a type of mood disorder, displayed a decreased response to behavioral therapy. Both pharmacological medicine and psychosocial therapy treatments can be adjusted to accommodate comorbidities, and if they're not, it's likely that these people are not going to be able to observe or experience sufficient changes in their symptoms. Subtype or presentation refers to the type of ADHD a person has. There are 3 different subtypes: hyperactive, inattentive, and combined. Hyperactive is going to have core symptoms of hyperactivity and impulsivity. There's going to be a lot of struggles with doing things without thinking, or thinking fast, thinking a lot, or talking fast, talking a lot, moving their bodies a lot. Inattentive is going to have core symptoms of inattention. They're going to be daydreaming, not focused, not always there, and combined ADHD is going to have a combination of both hyperactive and inattentive symptoms. If a person with hyperactive impulsive ADHD is receiving treatment that's more catered to an inattentive profile, it's not going to work very well, and they're not going to see their desired outcome in symptom management. A review that focused on figuring out how gender should change the type of psychosocial treatment that a person receives concluded that subtype is a far more powerful contributor to ADHD phenomenology than sex. Subtype is a more accurate presentation of the symptoms a person is going to be experiencing rather than gender, and therefore subtype should be considered in the treatment process before gender is. With the wrong things being weighted in the treatment process, we again see this pattern of cases going untreated, undertreated, or treated with the wrong method or dose. People with ADHD often struggle with social isolation, are put at a higher risk of injury, and tend to experience more difficulties in the school system. If these symptoms continue to go mistreated, these problems could grow worse, becoming detrimental later in life. Girls are less likely to receive diagnosis due to referral bias. ADHD causes many problems like car crashes, social isolation, struggles with peers in school, risk of injury, and they're more likely to have comorbid mental health conditions. The continuation of this mistreatment may domino into bigger issues. If a person is at a higher risk for injury, and they keep injuring the same limb or the same joint over and over, these joints and limbs are going to become weaker, not being able to properly support this person. Similarly, if they struggle with their peers often, over and over, it's going to create or cause comorbid mental health conditions to become worse. And we still don't know the scope of the effect that referral bias has had. We don't know how many people are possibly receiving the wrong diagnosis and the wrong treatment. While there's no current solution to these discrepancies, bringing awareness allows for more research to be done, allowing us to better develop our knowledge and our understanding of ADHD. It's believed that community-based studies, both longitudinal and not, will provide further insight. ADHD needs to be better explored. We still do not understand a lot about it. ADHD is not one thing that exists in the US. It is an issue across the globe. Everyone around the world, someone has ADHD. This is a possible national health condition or health problem because we don't know how many people around the world are struggling with unnecessary symptom management issues because they've simply received the wrong diagnosis or the wrong treatment due to referral bias. There's so many things we don't understand, begging the need for further research. Thank you for coming to my 2025 TED Talk.